Hello everyone. In this part, we're going to work on the backend. So now we're gonna open the terminal and go to this folder where our application exists, chat app socket IO. And here we have a front-end folder. So now we're gonna make a new directory using this command backend, and this will create a backend directory for us. Let me just open this and drag it here. So I've opened this directory into VS Code, and we can do the next steps from here. So let me just open the terminal. So first, to initialize a project, we're gonna run this command npm init-y. So this will create a package.json file for us. You can see the file here. Now we're gonna install some libraries that we're gonna use. So let's just run this command npm install express mongoose .env cores, and then the socket.io and jsonwebtoken. Then press enter, and this is going to install all of these libraries. Okay, so this is done. Now we're gonna install the types for all of these libraries. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this command. By the way, you can find this command into the video description. We are installing types for express, cores, mongoose, and the socket.io. So just press enter, and this is installed. So because we're using TypeScript, so I'm gonna run this command to create a TypeScript configuration file. Okay, so there we can see a TS configuration file where all the TypeScript configuration will go, but we won't be using this. So let's just close this. Now I'm gonna install a package called Nodemon. So this is very important for us because this is going to watch our server, and whenever there is a change, it will restart the server. So first I'm gonna create a server file. Just to show you how it will work, I'm just gonna create a console log here. This will say backend, and let's just create a script in the package.json. Let's call it dev, and we're gonna use the nodemon command and the file that we're watching. So I'm just gonna write index.ts, and let's save this and run this script as npm run dev. Okay, so there you can see it's watching all the TypeScript and JSON files, and there we can see the backend console log. So it's going to watch all the files in this directory, all the routes, the controllers, and the models. So whenever there's a change and we save a file, this is going to restart everything. So if I write here console log as test live updates, it's going to restart running this file, and there you can see test live updates. So let's just remove this, and now we're gonna create a new file for all the types. So let me just create a file in the root directory, and here I'm gonna copy and paste all the types that we're gonna use in this project. So I'll just show you these whenever we're gonna use them. You can see we are using document and types from mongoose, but I'll explain whenever we're gonna use these. Now let's create a new file as .env. This is going to hold all the environment variables. First, we're gonna have the port as 3000. Then let's go to the index file and start creating a new server. First, I'm gonna export the express from express. Then we're gonna use a module called HTTP. This is a built-in module. So then we're gonna import the cores. Okay, so now using express, we're gonna create an express app. So let's create a variable and use express like this. Okay, so we're gonna need the environment variables here, and for that we're gonna import the .env library, and we're just gonna call the config function on this .env.config. Okay, so now I'm gonna use express.json function, and what this will do is it will parse all the incoming request data into JSON. Then I'm gonna use cores to receive the request from everywhere. After this, I'm gonna create the first route as the get route, and here I'm gonna define a callback with the request and the response. And for now, I'm just gonna send a simple response as the server is running. just to see if everything is working. So we have created the route, but we still need to create the server, and first we will need to define the port. So let's create a port variable using process.env.port, and for some reason if it's not defined, then we're gonna use 3000. Now let's create a server using http.createServer, and here we're gonna provide the express app like this. And then we're gonna use the listen function to listen on this port, and in the callback we'll just add a console log saying that the server is running on the port 3000 like this. And let's save this. So there in the console we can see server is running on port 3000. That means the server is running, so we can confirm this. If we go to localhost 3000, there you can see the server is running, which is coming from the get route that we defined here. So now we have a basic Node.js server running. Now we're gonna work on setting up the database, and for database we're going to use mongodb. So first thing you're gonna do is sign up if you haven't already. So let me just sign up using a new account. I'm gonna use Google sign up, and then it will say accept the privacy policy and terms of service. Just submit. So after you sign up, they will ask you questions about why you're using MongoDB and what you're building. You can answer these questions here, or like me, you can just skip these. And then they'll ask you to deploy your cluster. So there are multiple options for paid ones as well, but you're gonna use free one because the free one will be more than enough for our projects. And then the region provider, you can choose whatever you want, but I will leave this everything as it is, then create deployment. So now we're in the dashboard and the cluster is being created. Okay, so after the cluster is created, they will ask you to create a database user to connect to the database. You can close this and they will ask you when you try to connect to the cluster. So here we have cluster 0. We can edit the configuration or connect to this cluster. Here they will ask you to create a user. So for now, I'm just gonna create a test user and then add a strong password. So you will need to copy this user and password and save it somewhere safe. I'm just gonna copy it and save it. Then create as user. Now we're gonna choose a connection method. So here you're gonna use MongoDB for VS Code. Then it will provide a connection string. So we're gonna use this to connect to our cluster and read and write data into our database. So I'm just gonna copy this, go to the .env file. And then here I'm gonna create a new variable mongo URI and paste the string. Now where it says db password, we're gonna have to paste the actual password. So now we have the connection string, but this is not yet complete. We still need to manage the network access. So if we go to the sidebar, there we have network access tab, and this includes our current IP, which is good, but I want to access this cluster from everywhere. So we're gonna need to add a new IP address, then click on allow access from anywhere, then confirm. And it's created. Now what this means is we'll be able to access this cluster from every IP, I mean anywhere. So this is our cluster 0 and it's live. Okay, so now we're gonna try to connect to this database, and I'm gonna create a folder here, config, and then a new file inside as db.ts. So first we're gonna import mongoose. That will help us connect to the database. And then we're gonna import .env. Then we're gonna use the config function on this so that we can use the environment variables. Now we're gonna create a function connect db, and this is going to be an async function and it will return a promise. Okay, so let's add a try catch block in case if we get any errors. So first I'm gonna console log the error mongodb connection error. Okay, so now we can connect to the database. Let's use the connect function on Mongoose, and we're gonna need to provide the Mongo URI that we created. So process.env.mongo URI. We're getting an error. Okay, so this needs to be as string like this. So here, after we get the error, we're gonna throw the error, and then we're gonna export this function by default like this. Let's save this. So now what I'm gonna do is, first we're gonna connect to the database, and then we're gonna listen to the server. So now I'm gonna import the connectdb function, and here I'm gonna add then function, and inside this we're gonna move this part where we listen to the server. So it will only work when the database is connected like this. And then I'm gonna add the catch function, and this will give us an error if there is any while connecting to the database. And here I'm just gonna console log failed to start the server due to database connection error, and console log the error as well like this. Let's save this. So there you can see it says server is running on port 3000. That means it first connected to the database and then started the server. So here I'm just gonna add a console log saying database connected like this. And there we can see database connected and the server is running on port 3000. Okay, so now I'm gonna create a new folder for all the models. So first I'm gonna create the user model, and I'm gonna import the schema and the model from Mongoose. Now using schema, we're gonna create a new user schema, and here we also gonna provide the user props. Okay, so if I show you the user props, we have the following properties: email, password, name, avatar, and created. And it's also extending the document, because in MongoDB each record is a document, so you can just copy these properties as the user props. Now let's define these properties here. First we're gonna have email. This is going to be of type string. Then it will be required and unique, so that no user can use the same email twice. And then it will be lowercase, and we're gonna use trim as true, so that it will get rid of the white spaces in the email. So this is email. Then we're gonna have the password field, and it's going to be of type string, and it will be required like this. Then we're gonna have the name property. This is going to be string and required as well. So I'm just going to copy this for other properties as well. This will be avatar, and then this will be created when the user is created. The avatar is of type string, and we don't need to make it required. Let's just add a default value as an empty string. Then created add will be type of date, and the default value will be date.now when the user is created. Okay, so now we need to export this. So let's use export default. Then we're gonna use the model, then define the user props, and the name will be user, and then the user schema like this. Let's save this. So now that we have the user schema, now we can create the routes for login and registration. So let's create a new folder as routes. So first we're gonna create the authentication routes. So let's create a file auth.routes.ts. So now I'm gonna use these auth routes in the server file, and this will be accessed under the auth segment. So this will say /auth and then the authentication routes. Now we're gonna need to import these as well. So import auth routes from routes / auth routes. And currently it's giving an error because we are not exporting any modules. So it's saying that this is not a module, which is okay. So to define these routes, I'm gonna use the router from Express. Let's import the router like this, and then we can define the routes on this one. So I'm going to use a post route on /auth /register. And then we're gonna define the request handler, which we will do later. Let's copy this for the login route like this, and let's save this. We need to export this as well. So export default router. Let's save this, and this is going to fix the error. So now we need to create controllers for these request handlers. So I'm gonna create a new folder and then create an auth controller.ts. So here I'm gonna export two async functions for register and login. For now, let's just leave them empty. Okay, so now let's go to the routes, and here we're gonna use the register user handler and then the login user handler here. Okay, now these handlers will receive two properties as the request and the response. So let's define these. Request will be of type request from Express, and then the response will be of type response from the Express, and then this is going to return a promise like this. So here first we will need to get the data that we are sending from the front end. We're going to send the email, password, name, and avatar, and this will be received in the request body like this. Now we're also gonna define a try catch block. If there is any error, we'll just get this in the catch block. So let's just console log this error here. And using the response, we're gonna send an error response as well. So response.status of 500, and then we're gonna use the JSON function to return the response in JSON format, success as false, and the message will say server error like this. So in the try block, first we're gonna get the user to see if it already exists. So we're gonna use user.findOne function, and this will find the function in the database where the email is the one that we are providing. And then if we have the user, let's add a condition. If there is any user, then we're gonna return the error response. So let's set the status to 400 and return a JSON response as success false, and the message will say user already exists, and then a return statement like this. So if there is no user with that email, then we're gonna create a new user. So let's add a comment here as well. This will say check if it already exists. Okay, so now let's create the user using the user model. And here we're gonna provide the properties as the email, the password, name, and the avatar. So hopefully we won't be updating the avatar at signup. So this is gonna be avatar or just an empty string like this. So after this, we're gonna hash the password because we cannot store the passwords as plain text into the database. We will have to turn them into a hashed string and then save it into the database. And for that, we're gonna install another library called bcrypt.js. So just run this command npm install bcrypt.js. Okay, so that is done. Now let me just run our server. And there we can see the server is running. Now we're gonna create a salt using the bcrypt library. So bcrypt we're gonna have to import it manually. Import Backend from package.js like this, and we usually create a salt of 10, so we're gonna use the function generate salt and provide the value as 10 rounds, and then using this salt we're gonna hash the password. So user.password will be bcrypt.hash, then the password as the plain text, and then the salt. So this is going to provide us with the hashed password. So the password is hashed. Now we're gonna save the user. So await user.save function. So at this point the user is saved, and now we're gonna generate a token that we need to send back to the front end. So we can't send the user sensitive data to backend. We have to send a token that contains the user data. So we'll have to send the response as success true and the token. So the question is, how do we create a token? And for this I'm gonna create a separate file in the utilities as token.ts. So if you remember previously, we installed a library jsonwebtoken that will help us create a token. So here I'm gonna create a function that will receive the user data. It's gonna be of type user props, and inside this function I'm gonna define the payload, and this will be an object containing the user object. And here we need to define the properties that we'll be sending to the front end. So ID, name, email, and the avatar. We're not including the password because we don't need the password string on the front end. So this is the payload, and then we're gonna use the library jsonwebtokens to use this payload and create a token. So let's import jwt from jsonwebtoken. And then we're gonna use the function sign and provide the payload with the user data, and then it also requires a secret or a private key, and that we're gonna define in the .env file because it's a secret key. So let's define jwt secret here. As this is a secret key, you must not share it with anyone, and this can be anything, your pet's name or your favorite color, but don't share it with anyone. I'm sharing it with you guys because I'm going to delete everything after this tutorial is complete. So let's use it here, process.env.jwt secret as a string like this. And then we can add some options as well. So when this token will expire, we can add a property expires in, and here we can add multiple types of values. We can provide days, hours, years. So if I add 30D, that means it will expire in 30 days. Or if I provide 1M, that means it will expire after 1 month. So I'm just going to copy and paste these values that you can use here. So you can use M for month, Y for year, H for hours, and S for seconds. I'm just gonna add 30 days. So this token will be expired after 30 days. Now let's save this. Okay, so this will create the token for us. Now let's go back to the controller. And here let's use this function and pass in the user data that we have just created. Like this, and this will create the token and send the token back. So this function will check if the user already exists. If not, create a user, hash the password, save the user, and create the token. So this is the gist of how registration is going to work in the backend. Now for the login route, let's just copy the same handler and paste it here. Now let's add some space here, and then let's change this to login user. Now we don't need this function, so let's just remove this. Okay, and we do not need the name and the avatar from the front end, so let's remove this. And basically we need to remove everything inside the try block. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is find the user by email. So we have the email and the password. Let's get the user, await user.find, and then provide the email. Now we're gonna add a condition. If there is no user found with this email, that means the user is using invalid credentials. So we're gonna return a response with the status 400 success false, and the message will say invalid credentials, and then a return statement after this. So this is when there is no user with this email, but if there is a user, then we're gonna compare the password and check if user is using the correct password. So we're gonna create a variable isMatch, and we're gonna use the bcrypt. Bcrypt also provides the compare function to compare the hash and the plain text password. If the password that the user is sending is correct, then this will be true, but if it's false, that means the user is using the wrong password. So we're getting this error here that password does not exist on user, and we can clearly see that it does exist on the user schema. So I'm not sure what's happening here. Password does not exist on type. Oh, okay, so this needs to be find one. Okay, that fixes the issue. So after this will be true or false, but if it's false, then we're gonna add a condition. If it doesn't match, then we're gonna return a response. Basically this is gonna be the same response, so let's just copy and paste it here. Invalid credentials, then return from here. And if it matches, then we're gonna generate the token and send a success response. That means the user is logged in successfully. Now let's save this. So in the login function, first we are checking the user by email, then we are checking the password, and then generating the token and sending it to the front end. So with this, we have created the backend, the database, the login, and the registration routes. And in the next part, we will implement these APIs in the front end.